Following is going to be a brief overview of some of the pipeline tools and workflows we've developed for 3D Studio Max. The bottom left, there is a toolbar for all our custom tools, categorized by department, but you can also have your personal toolbar with all the tools you usually use. The bottom right, this is a toolbox for developers. It generally automates some version control for the code using Git. So we have like centralized repository kind of story. So there's some stuff that needs to happen each time you do a commit, so that this automates. At the top you can see the pipeline toolbox. It's got, selecting clients and projects and shots and assets, just getting to the right asset in the right stage, and doing all the version control. In this case, when I try to open the latest shot, the pipeline toolbox detected there are a few assets in the shot that are not up to date, and it offers to update them right there. So I just accepted it and I did the update while preserving the animation for the rigs. This is a tool for exploring the assets that are currently loaded in the scene. You can use large icons, you can dock it, you can drill down into each asset and choose to hide or show the rigs or the geometry. And you can also right click an asset and do certain operations on it, or drill even further into the rigs and show only specific rig parts. This is a tool for updating assets that are currently in the scene, while preserving all the animations and links between assets and link constraints. And in the case that there's more than one instance of an asset in the scene, you can choose how do you want to have these copies of the new versions of the asset. Whether it be copies or instances in the geometries or in the materials. You can save and load point caches, basically geometry caches, and you can export or import baked animation for the rigs. We rarely use the export and import anymore because we don't really need to bake the rigs. Baking breaks the rigs, and it's like a one directional kind of operation. The update asset can just copy the animation curves from each rig to its counterpart while preserving the structure of the rig. You can update just selected assets, either the specific ID that you selected or all the IDs of the asset. And there are many other filters you can use to scan the scene for assets and choose based on asset type, on asset mode, or an asset name. Here I'm just updating a specific character that I've selected, and I'm updating it from low res to high res. You can also do the low res to low res just to update the rig, and this is actually what it did earlier when I opened the shot. But in this case, what I just did is update the character from low to high, and this will actually bring the high-res version of the character with all the fur and the lighting and shading, and it will generate all geometry caches and load the caches into the high-res variation. As you can see in the asset browser, the character now has some lights. You can select them, you can hide them. The update asset tool is used across the board in production, mainly for converting animation scenes to render scenes by just updating all the assets from low to high, preserving the animation. But it is also used to update existing render scenes from changes that happen to the latest animation file. So say the rendering department is working on a shot, and while they're doing that, the animation is being updated for whatever reason, and now you don't want to redo the entire scene setup and preparation for rendering again, so you just take the existing latest rendering scene and just update the movement, the animation from the the latest animation file. Usually this is solved simply by re-exporting geometry caches, but we don't use geometry caches for everything, so we need to do this kind of process for moving the animation between rigs of the low asset to the rigs of the high assets. We also use this feature for what we call shot recycling, in which you have a master shot that you want to recycle to other shots that are shot from the same location roughly. And so what you can do is just use a render scene for the master shot and just import the animation from a different shot. Obviously, this process would require other things to happen, like resetting the timeline, the start and end frame, and remapping the render paths, file paths. This is a similar tool that shows an asset catalog from the storage, from what we actually have, our asset bank, and it allows to bring them into the scene and basically do set dressing and dressing the scene with assets. You can dress multiple instances of the same asset, and you can have it aligned to the surface of existing meshes in the scene. You can also play with the size and orientation as you dress. In this case, I just brought in another cake. So after I do that, in the asset browser, it's going to show that there are two cakes. I can choose to renumber the cake I just brought to a different ID if I need to. And I can right click and update both of them right in the asset browser. In this case, I didn't really have to do that because they're already updated, but this is just an example. And you can also choose to delete specific asset instances from the asset browser. The pipeline generates logs for basically everything that's happening, and we ship all these logs to centralized logging server, which has web-based interface that you can drill into logs and filter them and query them based on different criteria. This is a tool for doing visual scene analysis. You can basically paint the viewport according to different criteria. This allows for a quick selection of different rig parts, either the body or the face, or specific body parts, or the left and right side. You can just select an asset from the viewport and simply delete it in a safe way. You can choose an asset you want to replace to different variation, and you can just search for the other variation that you want to replace it to, and it will replace it, preserving the animation. When you want to go to a stage of specific asset, instead of trying to search for it in the pipeline toolbox, you can just select it and say which stage you want to go to, and it will just open the stage of the asset you selected. In this case, it actually opened it in read-only mode because it has detected that this stage is actually locked in some other computer. After working on an asset in a particular stage, you have to refinalize it to prepare it for the pipeline. And there's some checks that need to be made before that can happen. For example, we can simulate here a problem of having two objects with the same name because 3dsMax allows for it, and it can cause problems. Other common tools let you compose automations in a modular fashion and then execute them on a list of selected assets or shots. For example, the process of converting selected shots from animation to rendering is a simple process of composing the modules for opening the latest animation shot, updating the assets, and then saving them as the latest rendering shot. You can also just use a simple module that runs a script, and then it can do whatever you want. The pipeline integrates with an ALM system called Redmine, which automates the process of reporting bugs. You can generate a selection of shots by composing a query to Harmonica.